Good morning. I think it's morning. I'm so screwed up by this time change. At any rate, I'll assume it's morning. As you can see over my shoulder, the sun is out, just rising. Sunrise was 6:30 this morning. I like that. Didn't stop me from waking up at 3:30 though, and being awake ever since. But I'll get used to it, as will we all, I'm sure. I'm sure. Welcome on this Monday morning to Morning Coffee with moi, Mitch, in case you forgot. And to the business at hand, my friends. Let me get myself centered and situated here. Okay, I think that'll do it. Close enough. Whoa, forgot to turn on my light to light up my pretty face. Drink it. Drink it if you got it. I've been waiting for this since 3:30 this morning. Let me just enjoy this. While you enjoy yours. That is, if you got it. Oh, that's great. That's great. How are you, my friends? Good to see you this morning. All right, starting off with a big crowd. That's great. That's great. And here we are. Thanks for that Saturday night thing, guys. Thanks. I never expected to get that kind of response. I had a ball. Had a great time in that live stream. Got a lot of views on it. Really surprised me because it was a surprise. Just popped up. I liked it so much that I think we might give it a shot. Might give it a shot. Do you think that? And I know nobody's ever heard this term before, and the concept may be hard to grasp for a lot of people. But I decided I'm going to use it anyway. Do you think the phrase Saturday Night Live might actually catch on? People might start to recognize Saturday Night Live. Maybe I could get Don Pardo to introduce me. Yeah. At any rate, let me know if you think that's a good idea. Or did it just happen because it was spontaneous? Loretta says spontaneous is a good thing. It was fun. We're going to have the members only live stream Tuesday and Thursday night. And maybe, and I know I keep changing, but I'm trying to find the answer. Oh, aren't we all? Aren't we all trying to find the answer? Fill in the blank about which question it is that applies to you, but we're all looking for answers. Well, Rick says I was in a live Saturday night and missed Mitch's. Well, you know, we have 18,000 different channels of cable TV and choices, and it seems as if in our community we have a choice of 10 or 15 live streams at any time of the day or night, so you go like a party, a professional party goer. Just go from one party to another if you want. But I think the Saturday night thing is is a great time. It's a great time for me because I'm off. I took the whole day off. I'm probably bored as hell by the time Saturday night comes around, and I just felt like getting together with my friends. Nobody came in to chat, though, which is okay. Maybe people would rather not have a panel and just be included. I enjoyed either way. I have no problem just interacting with you. I kind of had it maybe beat into me, but I finally decided that not everybody wants to be in school all the time. Sometimes they just want to socialize. And I had such a good time Saturday night. You don't have to run me over with a semi-truck. I realize that I kind of missed that too. So I'm trying to adjust everything so that I'm having a good time. Less and less conflict, less hurt feelings on everybody's part, and just go with it. Because I think we do have a real problem in the carnivore community these days with everybody, me included, just kind of running around with it like a chicken with our head cut off. What direction do we go in? I always used to say one of my greatest talents, and the reason I always wear sneakers, always, I don't wear shoes, I always wear sneakers of some kind, is that in this world, you got to be ready to pivot like a tennis player, change direction in an instant's notice. Because if you get too firm and rigid, the world, you find out, is going in the other direction. And you excuse me, I want to get some coffee into me. Loretta, Saturday night was like a cigar lounge chat, she says. Call it that. Yeah. Oh, how to piss off more people with one concept. Yeah, have a cigar with Mitch. Oh, man, I can just see the comments now. Don't you know that smoking is bad for you? Shame on you for encouraging cigar. Oh. I say you cannot win. And it seems, no matter what direction I take, what concepts I try to talk about, half the people will tell me why it's wrong, and half the people will agree with it. It's okay. I'm fine with that. The problem I have, oh, it's so ironic, is all I want is for the people who don't agree with my concept to just go away so that I can be surrounded by those people who are open to discussions that might solve a problem, even if it's not the problem they thought they had. It just might give them a clue. So one of my favorite expressions these days, no good deed goes unpunished. And we've all heard that. And we've all probably been a victim of that. Rick thinks Cigar with Mitch would be a good show. It might be. It might be. I'd have to do it from outside, and unfortunately, I haven't been physically up to setting up that studio outside and taking it down every time. And now we're getting into the cooler weather, so that's not a good idea either. And I'm not going to smoke cigars in my house. So we'll see. We'll see. And Sandy says to me, and I've been debating whether to talk about this, because no matter what I say, I hurt people. I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings. They're going to take it the wrong way. And try to hurt my feelings. Because that's just what people do. And I just decided that and this is hard for me, but the comment says, did anyone see, you know who, because I'm just not going to mention his name, 10 a.m. Sunday, he said there is no such thing as addiction. Blew me away. I have no disagreement with the man. Every time I mention his name, my intention is only to help him. But lately I've got the distinct impression that he thinks I'm trying to hurt him. And that hurts me. That hurts me. We basically have a difference of opinion on a couple of things. And it is what it is. So the problem that we have is that people tell on us, just like, and there's nothing wrong with it, Sandy, and I do it too. I mean, I do it, and that's what gets me in trouble. Hey, do you hear what so-and-so said? You know, sometimes maybe I don't get it quite right. And that's not what so-and-so said. But so-and-so told me what so-and-so said, or that they heard from another person that so-and-so mentioned that he had heard from another person that you said X. And just like the old story about what happens when one person goes into a room and whispers a story in the ear of the first person, everybody passes it on. And by the time it gets to the end of the room, the story doesn't even resemble the original story or the truth. And wars are started like that. And misunderstandings happen because of that. Urban legends allow these things to propagate themselves over decades and decades and centuries to where we're now believing and telling each other what one person said to another person 2,000 years ago. As if it hasn't lost anything in the translation along the way. That's gossip. That's gossip. And it has resulted in what I think, although we haven't talked about it, is a tremendous understanding between friends on so many fronts. And it pains me and it saddens me, but it is what it is. So I've made a decision to just let it shake out. Everybody can say what they want. My friend is going through a period of fighting gossip right now. I know the feeling. I know the feeling. I'm very perceptive. Nobody has to hit me over the head with a 2x4 when they open their mouth and words come out. I read body language like an expert. I can analyze the mood of the speaker. I don't have the ability to hide my true feelings. I just come out and blurt them out. I get in a lot of trouble because of that. But my friend is fighting the gossip. And the gossip is that he's abandoned carnivore. And it couldn't be further from the truth. And what he's saying is exactly what I'm saying. And actually, in many ways, proving my point and my observations. What I talked about in yesterday's video about the fact that people who are on a different score on the carb addiction spectrum cannot understand what people who are more addicted than they are actually go through. We're all like that. Every one of us always views the world from our own suffering experience, and especially with addiction and cravings. All addictions are the same. Drug addiction, alcohol addiction. It's insulting to an alcoholic who knows it's not anything he can control, no matter how much so-called willpower he has. Always resents being told by somebody who's not addicted to whatever substance that is, especially carbohydrates, to grow a pair. You're not strong enough. You're not working hard enough. There's no such thing as addiction. It's all in your head. And the people who are addicted, like I am, just say, you're wrong. I know better. This is happening to me. You can't, because you're not a severe addict, tell people they're mistaken. You can't do that. So that's creating a lot of conflict in me. And I say to myself, well, what are my choices here? Do I just become an island unto myself? Never talk about another influencer or YouTube person that's in the carnivore space, whether they agree with me or not. Just never mention any of their names, because all that does is just get me in trouble, because when they finally get the message of what somebody else heard that somebody else thought that I said, the natural human tendency is to assume that's the truth. That's what the person said. And I don't want to create hard feelings. I haven't changed my opinion of any of my friends, that's for sure. But I know that there's a lot of misunderstanding involved, a lot of misinterpretation. And when you bring in subjects as divisive, and this is the problem, as divisive as religious beliefs, as divisive as biochemistry science, even this addiction stuff. I think it might be better to ignore or not even talk to those people who disagree with you. It can only lead to hard feelings and hurt feelings, and it's hurt me. This has hurt me. Anyway, I want to be happy on these live streams. I want to enjoy my life, and you do too. I want to try to help. I've got some answers that are so simple. And the whole entire carnivore community now is overcomplicating virtually everything to the point where nobody has any clear direction. When people in our community are telling you that carnivore is dangerous, we got enough doubts. We got enough doubts in our head. I tried to describe in my video yesterday where all this noise is coming from. All this noise is coming from. It's coming from people whose businesses, whose incomes, corruption, legacies, reputations are all vested in your little theory not being right. And I explained yesterday in my video that that's the reason why carb addiction has never taken hold as a thing. Too many people don't want to see it go away. They don't want to see it treated. They don't want to even see it taken seriously. It actually pays for these. This is the irony of it. These are the things that people don't recognize, that my ridiculous mind picks out as obvious. Why? Why would a concept like treating all of these other addictions, why would everybody push that? Why would the medical community push the message that alcohol is bad for you? You need to fix it. Why would they push the message that drugs, cocaine, all those things are bad for you? The only message they didn't push real hard on, the drug companies, was that opiates are addictive. Don't tell them. At the root of all of this stuff are their own self-interests. All the messages, all of the programs, everything that we hear is aimed at promoting their self-interests and squashing the message of the people who want to cure the problems that they profit from. Correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me if that doesn't make sense. Tell me if that doesn't make sense to you. And here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. The food and drug companies like things just the way they are. They don't mind us being addicted to their products because their products make us sick and create business for the medical community. They don't like that. They don't want to hear that. They want to call that nonsense. They want to come up with excuses and propaganda. But they sure like to point out the evils of these other addictions. And they want you to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And they want you to get the treatment programs. We got just the drugs for you, too. And the reason they want you off of those addictions is because it's human nature. Listen to this. It's human nature to replace one addiction with another. And what addiction? Now, I know this is going to be hard to figure out, kids, but what addiction do most people end up turning to when they've managed to get off of nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, and the other drugs? What do we turn to for our comfort and pleasure then? Anybody? That's obvious, isn't it? Quit smoking, gain 50 pounds. Quit drinking, gain 100 pounds. They want us to give up those other things and start eating their products and taking their drugs. And that's why they don't want to know or are willing to admit that carb addiction is a problem. It's a bigger problem than being an alcoholic, a bigger problem than smoking cigarettes, a bigger problem than drinking coffee, and a much more widespread problem, except for maybe opiate addiction, which they like, and they're not trying to talk you out of that. A much wider problem than hard drug addiction, which is a problem, but nothing doesn't affect nearly as many people as those of us here who are affected by carbohydrate addiction. And that's why I say the reason that we're all in such bad shape and we've been led down this road all our lives is because we're carb addicts. And that is the problem that needs to be addressed. First, foremost, more than red dye number 5, more than seed oils even. It's carbohydrate addiction. The oldest addiction that a human animal has ever had to deal with. And the things that come out of my mouth and the concepts and the observations, you're just not hearing anybody anywhere else. And I get hell for it. I get hell for it. I get chastised. That's my opinion. My opinion. And I can't lead you anywhere except to common sense. And tell you, say these things and say, did you ever think about it this way? Take all the nonsense and the mystery and the fantasy out of it and just kind of open your eyes and look around and observe what's happening. And you may still jump to a different conclusion. At any rate, that's my new thing. I'm basically going to have to ignore the rest of the all the carnivore YouTubers. I don't pay much attention to them. I don't watch many of them anymore. I see this terrible trend. I looked at my YouTube feed the other day, and it was one video after another. You've all seen them. Is this the end of carnivore? Do I need to add carbs? If I don't add carbs, am I hurting myself? Blah, 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 one after another. And I took screenshots of them on my cell phone. I couldn't believe it, one after another. And I'll probably put together a little montage of them and show you, one after another. Most of the videos in this genre, when I was looking at the time, were all clickbaity, designed to get you to watch. That's all people care about, clicks. I understand why. It's a lot of work to do this. It's no money. You don't get fame. You don't build subscribers. Unless YouTube knows they're getting the views and can run the ads. I take the path less traveled and fade off into oblivion. It's been the story of my life because I'm searching for things like, I know it's folly and self-destructive, but I'm searching for actual fact and truth that makes sense. And fewer and fewer of us these days. And it shows in my channel. It shows in the viewer counts. People aren't interested. They're not interested. They're interested in drama and sensationalism and gossip and conflict. That stuff sells. This may not sell. And I'm willing to let it fade off into nothing and just go away and say, well, Mitch, you tried. Let me say hello to some of you. And I didn't really have anything planned for this morning other than a little morning get together. I really wanted to see how you feel about maybe I'd be better off doing fewer early morning live streams and doing more later in the day. Anytime after the middle of the day would be perfect for me. The only time I really want to have my freedom is in the early morning. That's the best time of the day. Even this morning, I was getting ready for the live stream and the sun was just starting to come up. That's the time I should be outside, enjoying the morning sun, taking care of myself. So I know a lot of people enjoy these early morning things, but maybe I should make it an evening cigar with Mitch or something like that. Maybe more people could be involved. Maybe more people could participate and get the message. Francine B bought me a coffee. Hi, Francine. Mitch, oh, wow, this is so kind of you. So kind of you. Francine says to me, every day you add a new pearl to the necklace of knowledge. Thank you. Francine, wow, that's very, very, very poetic. And very flattering. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. First one in this morning, or yesterday, was Rick, and then Jerry in the middle of a forest chimed in yesterday. Peter early, Michael Pregler early. Yesterday, midnight, Lady June from England. Brian Dish showed up at 5 o'clock this morning. Hiya, Brian. How are you? Wayne Herman. Good morning, Wayne. Lucy, work early this morning. Me, I bit up. Mike Seeley Sr.'s here. How you doing, Mike? Loretta? Tina? Sweetie, good morning to you. And Chris Swain from Australia. Rick chimed in this morning, sneaking up on 7 o'clock. John Beatty Art. And John Beatty, I thanked you yesterday. Good morning, Mitch and Mitch Fitz. Glad I searched the domain name, Mitch. Was happy you were able to get it. Yeah, like I said yesterday, John was the one, when I registered the name Carb Addiction Help, who it dawned on him, why not Carb Addiction Spectrum? And he emailed me. It didn't take me 2 seconds to go in and register that domain name because it was a great idea. Thank you. Not that this concept has any great commercial or monetization opportunities to it. But it's nice when you do have something that might become a slogan, like the carnivore diet, like Sean Baker had, that to have the domain name, thecarnivorediet.com, might be a nice property to have. Might be useful, if not for you, maybe for your successors in the future. So having those domain names, should this concept, against all the pushback, actually take hold, that was a great idea, and I owe you a debt of gratitude for that. Barry Simon's here. Hi, Barry, my friend. Good to see you. Brian Dish. Captain America, Steve Rogers is here from Kansas City, and Larry Ryan. How you doing? Larry is here. Mudbone, good morning to you. Jerry came back at 6:58. Sandy Bly. It's like calling a horse race, isn't it? And then the final stretch. Sandy Bly, that's 6:58, and Larry Ryan again. And Bacon Runner. Hi, Donna Ray. How are you doing? Bacon Runner used to be Main Runner. I keep trying to keep track of you, but I like that better. Bacon Runner. And Tanya, you woke up this morning. Wow. Time change is a good thing. How are you, sweetie? Great to see you here this morning. And Jerry Voitish is here with us. Hi, Jerry. How's everything up in Ponte Vedra Beach? Pretty morning out there this morning. And as if there was any doubt at all as to who. Sandy Blythe was here just a little early, but the winner again was Lambs. Oh, Lambs has got it down to a science. Followed close on his heels by Rick in Miami and Peter at 7. And here's the 7 o'clock crowd, Don Schonger. Who else we got here? This is Jason, Peter again, Rick again. Everybody's banging out the chats. So good morning, everybody. There's Francine. Thank you so much for that coffee. Really appreciate that. Good morning. It's 6:30 here. Also, life is good. Yeah, you're a little west up there in Canada, Francine, aren't you? And now we'll get into it. Let me see who I haven't said hi to yet this morning. Hanging out with Jen. Yes, we are. Hi, Jen. Don Galasso's here. How you doing? And Richard Williams. Williams joined us this morning. Hi, Richard. Loretta. I think I said hi to you already, but can't do that too much. Anybody I missed? Get down here a little ways, and then I'll start looking for questions or comments. You can put the QQQs in. I want to get to them right away, but before the stream is over, I will do a search through the entire chat for QQQs, maybe a couple times, make sure I don't miss them. I want to come up with a way of interacting with you. I'm starting to make more long-form videos where I can put out the message. I'm not disappointed in the response that I'm getting to my carb addiction message, averaging maybe 1,000 views on each of those videos. It doesn't surprise me because of what I said in video number 2. Everybody is brainwashing you into believing that there's no such thing as carb addiction for one reason or another. And the biggest enemy that we have are ourselves, because nobody who's addicted to something wants to believe that there's any valid reason why he should give up the thing that brings him all that pleasure in life. So we're our own worst enemies. And it's not hard to prove that to yourself. If you're an addict, and I told you that they're all wrong about sugar, it's good for you, the more sugar you eat, the better. You go, tell me more. Tell me more. And if you don't believe me that you wouldn't do that, I merely have to refer to the furor that started at the number of clicks that the videos got, at the conversations, at the fact that so many people took it seriously. Just a month or two ago, when the main occupying topic of the entire carnivore and low-carb community was the sugar diet, I rest my case. I don't see that same activity, that furor, those view counts on the videos for the carb addiction spectrum concept that very well may just die of a death. And if it gets to a certain point where I see, and I understand why there's a real lack of interest, because even the victims don't want help, I'm going to stop. I won't, it might come to a point where I say, okay, you guys are not interested. I understand why, no hard feelings, but I'm wasting my time and an awful lot of work. And we'll leave it at that. Won't be the first project I abandon. Sometimes you have to remember the expression, it's like beating a dead horse. And if the world is not set up so that your horse can win a race, find something else to do. That's maybe why I've had so many different careers. The world changed. What I was doing, it wasn't viable anymore. Same thing with my cigar factory. Same thing with my drone business. Same thing with everything. The world changed. To continue doing something that failed yesterday, expecting a different result today, is the definition of stupidity. So that's what I got to say about that. Okay. A cigar. Okay, I'm way behind in this chat. Let me try it right now and see if anybody's got any questions for me up to this point, because we're 40 minutes into this thing. Let's see. Capital Q, Q, Q. So far, not a single QQQ in the chat. Kathy says, put your health first, not YouTube. Get that early outside time. Change the schedule. We'll still be looking for the new times. Well, I want you guys to be involved. That's why I brought it up. I wanted feedback from you as to how many people might rather see me on in the evening than 7 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's a good gimmick. It's morning coffee. We could have evening coffee. Well, evening coffee is not a good idea. How about this? Evening cocktails with Mitch. That's not a good idea. Where we all get a little sloshed, you know. That's how parties usually start. So what is dominating the chat here? What is dominating the chat? Let's see. Let's go way back. I don't see any QQQs. I can always push this button, the F3 button, and nothing. Okay. Francine likes the idea of Saturday Night Live. Okay, we'll do that. And we'll do it at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. And try to keep it to an hour, maybe a little more, but no real marathons. 9 o'clock Saturday night. Why not? That's when the rest of the world is just thinking about going out. So we'll try it. And if it doesn't work out like anything else that doesn't work out, we'll stop and change it and find something that works best for everybody. One thing I noticed about Saturday night was a lot of my old friends were there. People like Tanya, people that just can't make these early morning streams. We'll do that. Maybe instead of 2 private live streams a week, I should take the Tuesday night stream and not make it private community. Maybe the private community will get tired of just doing those panels. Maybe once a week is enough. That's a thought. I'll consider that. And bring in I'm not trying to sell people on the private community. I'm trying to get people to join. I don't care. It's like my book. I don't care if you buy it or not. I don't make any money on it. I'm not selling books. And unlike other famous YouTubers. I'm not trying to build private communities with different tiers of membership. And I'm not just talking about one, I'm talking about a lot of them, including some of the biggest ones do that. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not my motive here. My motive is to get better, to heal myself, get my life back, and try to make whatever I got left of this life fun and stress-free. And the very definition of what I'm doing is masochism. It doesn't. There are days I get up and I say, it doesn't make sense, Mitch. So 7 p.m. on. Let's do it this way this week, and we'll talk about it and see see how it works. 7 p.m. on Tuesday night. We'll just do a Tuesday night live. 7 p.m. a little earlier. Saturday, we'll do Saturday Night Live. I know it sounds complicated, but y'all don't need much notice. It looks like I can pop up anytime and gather a little crowd. So let's do 7 p.m. Tuesday. We'll still do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. Won't change that. 7 a.m. for the time being. Do the 3 evening live streams a week. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday on alternate days. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, get morning live streams. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, evening live streams. And the rest of the time, if I'm in the mood, to actually make videos, long-form videos, about what I think is important and what might be helpful. So we will do that. Let's see. DS111. I should get Mitch. You should give Mitch permission to smoke in the house. Well, you know, I talk to myself sometimes. Usually to be entertaining. I'll do things like, Mitch, what? Mitch, blah, blah, blah. That's a shtick. The one thing I don't do is never, ever refer to myself in the third person. Never. Rick says, gossip is a disaster in the making. It's true, Rick. It's true, Rick. No matter how much I gossip about you, I can't get you riled up about anything. Just kidding. No, I don't want to smoke in the house. I had an office when I had my computer company. I had a pretty big office, and I had it furnished beautifully with this desk, the desk that I have here. And the leather couch that red leather couch and chair that are in my living room. My house is furnished with leftover crap from my entire life. All the stuff that I had, that I managed to keep in my half of the divorce. But so much of that really expensive furniture I had in my office, I smoked in my office. And I had it really sealed up so that you couldn't smell the cigars outside of my office. And I had smoke eaters put into the ceiling, and because I wanted to smoke my cigars, because I spent my entire life in that friggin' office for one reason or another. When I finally moved out of there, I got to tell you, everything, including my desk, reeked. reeked from cigar smoke. We got it cleaned up. But it took a year for the last remnants and vestiges of that to actually vacate. Now, everybody would tell me that, well, that goes to show you why you shouldn't smoke, because you get all that stuff and you're like, there's not a put down that I haven't heard yet. But you don't inhale, so you breathe it in secondhand. But you breathe in everything secondhand. So go around your own house. Look under your bed at the layer of crud and dirt, and you're breathing that too. So we have the ability to filter these things. Or we'd all be dead from lung cancer or some such thing. So pick out the offensive thing of choice for you and annoy everybody else with your advice. Don't annoy me. Rick says, Rick's a real, here's what he said about 712. No one can change anyone else. They have to do it themselves. That is a firm truth. A firm truth. So I don't want to spend a lot of the conversation talking about other people. It only gets me in trouble. I'd rather you can share your opinions, because I'm not going to censor this chat, but I don't like it when y'all are talking about me in somebody else's live stream, unless it's complimentary, and then far be it for me to stop you. But we do our thing here. Everybody else does their thing there. Whatever their ideas or concept. We have such a broad spectrum of people. Everybody can draw an audience of people who adore them and people who are there just to find fault and criticize. That's the way the world is. Rick says, Mitch puts it in a simple way we can understand. I try to not talk over anybody's head. I try to use analogies always to make people understand. Nobody really, normal people who aren't biochemists can gain any actionable knowledge, and I use that word again, actionable, can gain any actionable knowledge from hearing people give an explanation of something with words they've never heard before, couldn't spell if their life depended on it, and will never hear again. That is meaningless stuff. I use them occasionally just to convince those arrogant know-it-alls that I do know something, but I don't expect it to be. For example, if I say oxidative phosphorylation, that's a meaningless, even though life could not exist without it. It's a meaningless bunch of jumble of letters. But if somebody's listening who understands biochemistry, maybe by dropping that into the conversation, I don't do it to say, look how smart I am. So when I talk, when I try to get points across, my whole goal is to try to use language that people who aren't experts in the field can understand. This is why so many of us have such a hard time watching Nick Norwitz, Bart Kay, people like that. Bart Kay is entertaining. There I go. See, I've mentioned names again. I don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Don't want to make enemies. So I do, and I appreciate it when somebody notices. And thank you, Rick. Thank you very, very much for that. And I continue to try to do that so that people can grasp the concept. The whole idea of teaching. What good is teaching if the people you're trying to teach have no friggin' idea what you're talking about? Their mind wanders in this distracting world of ours where you don't have to look very far for something to distract you. I try to grab your attention by making you actually understand the point I'm trying to make. And that fails sometimes at one of two different levels. Either you don't care, or I might be a lousy communicator. So to find two people that can actually understand each other and with no misunderstandings, no misconceptions is a rare thing. And just as anybody who's been married, how often that happens, where you're not misunderstood on a daily basis. A lot of conversation going on. And that's good. That's good because your conversation is not getting in the way of me trying to hold your attention for any reason. Because I think that I finally got it through my thick head that really probably the best way for me to handle these live streams, and not to consider them a classroom, but just to show where people can get together. Brian Dish says, Mitch, the most addicting thing is money, and most are chasing it because they think money will bring the happiness and health. Well, there's no doubt about it. And there's, one of the most famous expressions that people always use, biblical in nature, is that the love of money is the root of all evil. And then other people came along and said, well, it's not quite right. It's the quest for money that's the root of all evil. And there's many other variations on the theme. But the one truth about that statement is if you find evil of any kind in this world, it would be a safe bet that somewhere at the root of whatever it is, that behavior that caused that evil, the root cause of it, somewhere, money's got something to do with it. And that's simply because money is our medium of exchange. And you got to have some medium of exchange. Or else, why would you do anything? I mean, we all want to think we're altruistic. And a lot of us use that word altruism, and I was surprised to find out most people don't know what it means. Altruist. It means your Mother Teresa, basically. You give and give and give with no expectation of any return. There are many who think that that's a mental disorder. because it completely goes against human nature. Human nature is the reason why money is the root of all evil. Human nature is to survive. To survive, you need stuff. To get stuff, you better have something you can give in return. That's called quid pro quo, Latin for something, money for something is what it literally means. Quid pro quo. It's another term people use all the time. Many people don't know what it means. Quid is the money, quo for pro. It means something of value in exchange for something else of value. You see that a lot in politics. In politics, how come that congressman is pushing this lunatic idea? Somebody bribed them. Quid pro quo. And they use that term in the news. You hear it a lot. What's the quid pro quo, John? One wonders. Why would somebody sell out their own mother? What's in it for them? And that's human nature. Human nature is, okay, what's in it for me? That's what people want to know. That's animal behavior. What's in it for me? I'll do that for you, but what's in it for me? That's not what we consider kind or moral behavior, but we're animals. Animals aren't kind or moral. Animals are selfish, and their own survival is first and foremost. Me first. It always boils down to that. That's just reality. We try to control it to be able to have a society where people behave, and yet we haven't done away with criminals quite yet. We haven't been able to lock them up fast enough. It's a matter of how much conscience you have. And conscience is a physiological thing. It depends on the size of certain areas of your brain, the amygdala. Some people are totally and completely without conscience. Lions don't have a conscience. The lion, the animal that we so look up to, the noble lion, the eagle, the noble bird, symbol of strength. If we ever saw a human being behaving like a lion behaves, we would lock him up and sentence him to the chair. But it's okay for a lion. We are lions, according to people. We're not sheep. We're not lion. We're lions. We're lions. Hear us roar. But if I behave like a lion, if I attack some poor soul on the street corner, kill him, eviscerate him right then and there, and stick my face into his guts and start eating, and turn around and kill anybody that tries to stop me, nobody would admire me. But if a lion did that, they say, wow, look at that majestic animal. Same thing with an eagle. If an eagle swooped down out of the sky and grabbed its prey and did the same thing with its beaking claws, tore it apart, ate it raw, you'd admire it. Wow, look at that strength. That strength. Human being did it. Where is that admiration? We're supposed to be lions. We named a diet after it, the lion diet. Many people claim we're lions and we should eat like lions. I claim We're not lions. We shouldn't eat like lions. We don't kill our food, tear it apart, and eat it raw. We've evolved from that. There's big controversy. Should I eat raw? Should I eat cooked? So many different opinions from very smart people. And there's a case to be made for all of them. But just because somebody says something is so, doesn't mean it's a fact. It's an opinion. That's all that comes out of anybody's mouth is opinion. Nobody has the right to say this is a fact. It might be a fact for them, but doesn't mean they can apply it to you. There are very few things in life I can say that's a fact. I'm a carb addict. That's a fact. That's not just an opinion. I got news for you. It doesn't take too much to convince you yourself when there's something that you've personally experienced and witnessed. And as long as you're not hallucinating or delusional, you can be pretty confident in saying, well, I know that for a fact. But most things, none of us can state with that much authority, because most of it we just heard somewhere else. We didn't see it with ourselves. So, as far as this lion stuff goes, how did I get onto this? I don't know. Oh, it's already over an hour. Wow. And everybody's hanging in there with me. I hope these little musings of mine, because I like to do this, about random things, make you think. Because that's all I do all day. I think. My mind never stops. 3:30 in the morning, I wake up. I can't go back to sleep. I had enough sleep. I start thinking. Trying to make sense of things. And these are the kind of things I think of. I've been doing it all my life. That's a lot of thinking after all these years. Well, at any rate, it's just amusing, something to think about. I don't think we. I really don't think. Every time I hear somebody talk about be a lion, I say, I don't think so. I don't think we're not lions. We're not lions. We've come a long way since the lions. We are carnivores. We have that in common with them. But Jem, how you doing, Jem? Good morning to you. Jem says, Mitch, thank you for yesterday's Saturday Night Live. Well, we're going to do that on Saturdays for the time being and see how it works out. Peter says, it's refreshing when Mitch is positive and upbeat. It doesn't take much. I can be upbeat. I try to be upbeat every day. You're bombarded. Oh, yeah, if you open your eyes and look and listen, there's more out there to aggravate you and make you sad in the world than will make you happy. If you turn on the news, most of it is absurd and depressing, and only pointing out it's worse, it's getting worse, it's going to get worse, and this hurricane's going to blow you away. You know, it's just not really great news. Great news doesn't sell. So we're stuck with that. But I try to pick out the little things, you know. And the expressions, they may sound a little bit trite, but stop and smell the roses. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If there is something that tickles you, go after more of it. If I'm watching YouTube, for example, For me, watching YouTube is like research, like doing research. Well, I wonder what so-and-so said about such and such. Okay. And most of the time, it's alarmist stuff because that's what gets clicks. Thumbnail. Don't ever do this one thing or your genitals will fall off. Exclamation point. It's a thing. It's clickbait. There's one thing you better not do. Well, who in the world doesn't want to know what that is? You get tired of that shit. And more and more. And now on YouTube, at least 50% of the videos across the spectrum of YouTube are not even made by a human. They're AI generated. I would say right now, and they use every dirty trick in the book, that every thumbnail you see with Joe Rogan's picture on the thumbnail and the name Joe Rogan in the description has nothing whatsoever to do with Joe Rogan. He has nothing to do with it. It is an AI generated thing from his old clips without enough of it being shown to break any copyright laws. And these things are generated by the thousands every day and just spewed out there. And I've gotten to the point now where I see the name Joe Rogan, I see his picture, I go to YouTube and just say, don't recommend this channel. And I'm doing that 10, 20, 30 times a day now if I'm watching YouTube, just to try to keep that artificially generated crap out of my sight. That way I can reduce my aggravation a little bit. But then I get sometimes an old George Carlin video comes up in my feed. And I click on that and I say, I just need to be happy for a second and stop being bombarded with this aggravating propaganda and bullshit. And I watched that old George Carlin clip, a clip I've probably seen 20, 30 times, from a concert that I've probably seen 10 times, that I probably have memorized word for word already. But I enjoy it, and it makes me happy, because if George Carlin ever had a twin brother who looked at the world exactly like he does, it would be me. Would be me. I see the same absurdities that he made a fortune and based his whole life on pointing out. I don't have his talent for the delivery, but I do have that power of observation, and to pick out with precision the absurdities that people buy into and make a comic routine out of it, is what he could do. So that makes me happy. And I get positive and I smile, and what happens is I end up sitting there for 2 hours watching George Carlin clips, one after another. I have the same thing happens with South Park. That's why I watch South Park. I can't sit there unoccupied. I have time. But to sit there just not being distracted by something just lets my mind go places where sometimes I'd rather it didn't go. So I needed a distraction. I used to have airplanes and boats and drones and motorcycles and women and all this marriage and big house. I had all this distraction just so I wouldn't sit around all day and think about problems. And in my mind trying to fix them for everybody. So I find that if I need to be distracted, watch something funny, stupid, silly, but clever, something that's well done. And I found myself watching Family Guy and South Park and sometimes even Seinfeld, although I've worn that out already. And comedians that I like, especially comedians that are smart, smart. And if you don't or haven't watched George Carlin, many of you will think he's a little irreverent. So am I. A lot of irreverent. But that's how I try to stay happy. So I don't want to be angry. I don't want to rant all the time. But I do want to fix things. And sometimes you got to grab somebody by the collar and slap them in the face and say, snap out of it. And I need somebody to do that for me once in a while, too. Oh, wow. Let's see. Let me see if any of these, anybody put any QQQs in the chat ever. Let's see. Maybe you people are afraid to ask me questions. I don't see not a single one. Wow. Oh, here we go. Why didn't it find that one? Oh, why do you got to have names like this? MUNDUSVUHDECIPI. Anybody? Pronunciation? MUNDUSWALTDECIPI. Question, could there be any evolutionary advantage in the existence of carb addiction in any herd? Even a cat prefers whipped cream over... Oh, I talked about that. I don't recognize your name, my friend, and welcome. But that is the basis. What you just said is the basis of why I believe, and I've tried so desperately to explain, why there is such a thing as carb addiction. You nailed it. You nailed it right there. And carb addiction is not a human, exclusively human. Carb addiction is so baked into our DNA that it goes back to the non-human ancestors that we came from. And the reason we are a hybrid machine, that we can derive our energy source from two entirely different types of fuel, the fats and the sugars. And why, through evolution, we came to possess the different chemical pathways in all of our cells. And all of this stuff exists at a cellular level. It has nothing to do with what those particular cells end up building in the long run, because the cells, the actual cells, still work pretty much the same way they worked before there was such a thing as a human being. Our primary preferred energy source is fat. I would think that would be obvious, because if you have a car and you say to yourself, well, I need to carry energy around with me. What do I need to carry the most amount of energy that'll give me the longest range with the least amount of weight? Because I got to use energy to carry the weight too. Oh, what are my choices? Okay, well, we found this shit called gasoline, which seems to contain just a ton of energy. And it's amazing how much work you can actually perform with 1 gallon of gas. You know, we can mow our whole lawn generally with a gallon of gas. I doubt we could get that much energy out of a gallon of maple syrup. So that's preferred. Then we have this thing called electricity, but batteries are very heavy. And we can't, for the weight and the range, we can't get near the amount of energy in a car from a battery that we can from a tank of gasoline. Same thing with home generators. We have gas generators at home, which put out enormous amount of power running on gasoline. we can keep enough gasoline and some gas cans to run the thing for days. Or we could go out and spend $15,000 and get one of these big battery backups, which and so recharge it with solar energy, and we can run our house on it, but not nearly as long as we can run it on $50 worth of gasoline. And so gasoline, turns out, was the appropriate fuel if you want to run your car for a long time. Well, in an organic machine like human beings, it turns out that there's a lot more energy in fat. So if we're going to store one form of energy or the other, let's store it as fat. That way we will ensure our survival for a longer period of time while we're traveling or fasting or famining and hibernating. Then we can store. But we can use sugar for fuel too, but it just metabolizes differently. It's great for like quicker energy. It's like the difference between an oil lamp and fireworks. An oil lamp will take a little bit of energy and burn for days and days and days. Fireworks just boom. Well, the boom is the sugar. Sometimes you need the boom, but for just keeping you alive, it's the fat. The fat came from the animals. The sugar came from the carbohydrates. So as we became carnivores, we prioritized the fats. And we need the protein because that's what we're built of. You know, eat what you are. You are what you eat. We're not plants. We're animals. We should be eating animals. Replacing this stuff we're actually built of, not the things that the rhododendron outside is built of. Logically, we should be carnivores. This question of yours, my friend, is right at the heart of it. Why are we carb addicts? We're carb addicts because the carbohydrates became our survival fuel. It wasn't the best fuel for us to run on, but when the best fuel could not be had, just like in your house, got to start the generator, run on a different kind of fuel. We have the pathways to make the same current energy currency, the ATP, from either sugar or fat, either glycolysis or lipolysis. This again at a cellular level. But we got a problem. We got a problem. We can carry around months worth of this fat stuff on us, but we can't store a lot of sugar. It's not the preferred fuel. Now, I'm talking logically like this was actually pre-planned and thought out. But if you have a thorough and complete understanding of the dynamics of evolution, you understand how all this could happen accidentally over a period of enormous lengths of time, an enormous number of generations and iterations, and having accidental changes happen so often for so long, and only needing one of them to actually make an improvement. That's how all this developed. Sorry, religious people. You can go away here if you don't like this line of thinking. So what happened was we developed kind of like sensors that monitored the level of different substances in our body. And one of those things that we monitor, that we still monitor today, is blood sugar. Now, if you're living on fat, not eating sugar, your blood sugar is usually pretty stable, and this is the way it was. There wasn't a lot of sugar around, and you don't have to go back very far to find that out. When was the first 7-Eleven built? 15,000 years ago, there were no stores. There was no money. There was only, people living, tribal people. So you have this situation where the mechanism can monitor this level of blood sugar, and it also can monitor the stores of something called glycogen in your muscles and liver. And this is how sugar is stored in the body. And this is the key fact right here. While we can store months, and in some huge people, years worth of energy as fat, we can store 1 day, 24 hours worth of sugar as glycogen. Now, the body can replace some of this by gluconeogenesis, but that has to be made out of something that needs to come from animal-based food, protein, fat, and if you're not getting that, you're in real trouble. So you need to go and find some. You need to eat. Well, there are no big hairy animals. We'll have to scrounge. So we started scrounging for these carbohydrates. We weren't worried about how good they were for us, whether they had toxins in them or not, even whether we got sick from them. Because that just set us off down a different evolutionary path, and it set the plants off down a different evolutionary path, and the ones that could kill off most of the predators survived, and the ones that couldn't defend themselves and got eaten, they got eaten out of existence. Once again, evolution. But we could replenish this short-term fuel called sugar by eating plants. There's also a tendency for each of these different types of food that we eat to trigger completely different hormonal responses in our bodies. The normal is you eat meat, you eat fat. It triggers the satiety, the leptin, the satiety hormone, and your hunger goes away. You are satisfied. An emotion that the mind uses and communicates through feelings, not words, the feeling of satiety. And that's how every animal that has no conscious mind gets messages from its brain in the form of urges and feelings. Pain, pleasure, satiety, hunger, horniness. All of these different feelings and urges make us do what we need to do to continue to survive without having to say the words to ourselves in our conscious mind or think a conscious thought. It's autopilot. It's life. It's how every other living thing on the planet, every plant, every animal, every microbe, fish, bird, I don't care who they are, that's how they operate. Only we humans have consciousness, awareness of our own existence. Ironically, the entire animal kingdom does not have the problems that humans have, unless humans try to interfere. They just go about their thing and follow their instincts, follow their feelings. They eat when they're hungry, they stop eating when they're satisfied. When they have that urge to reproduce, they go in heat, and that becomes their top priority. When they're in danger, the fight or flight mechanism comes in, and they do whatever they need to do to survive another day. That's the prime goal. Survive. That's the meaning of life. What's the meaning of life? To survive. Nothing else has any meaning and even approaches that. So what happens is, we're still talking about that question, and I've gone over this many times. So why are we an addict? Well, the animals that weren't satisfied by eating sugar and continued to be hungry and being urged to eat more and more sugar had a better chance of surviving than the animals that didn't. And eventually, a survival trait that is advantageous to the species will work its way into every member of that species after so many generations. The weak will die off, the non-adapted will die off, and the strongest will survive in a given set of conditions, and that's called survival of the fittest. But the fittest doesn't mean you look best, you're the one that looks best in a bathing suit. It means you're fit. Your particular combination of all these things makes you the most likely to survive in this particular environment. And we could talk for college courses on the nuances of all that. So what happens, we developed in our programming a different reaction to either fat and protein or carbohydrates. When we ate fat and protein, it worked out real well, that it was okay to, we didn't want to eat too much, so the satiety hormones flew, and we pushed ourselves away from the table. When we ate the sugar, that doesn't happen. Carbohydrates will not produce satiety. They produce just the opposite, because our ancestors and predecessors that survived were programmed, however they were programmed, to seek out more and more and more, have their gluttony turned on. You find some carbohydrates, you may not find some again. You best eat all you can eat, and if you can't eat any more, of course you're going to blow up, you still gather them up and take them home for later. Your survival depends on it. So we see in human beings today, and even in many animals, you're eating fatty steak, you can't eat that much of it. Somebody puts a bowl of spaghetti in front of you and sweets, you can't stop until you're uncomfortable and sick. And an hour later, you're going to be diving back in again. That is a natural instinct. If you're addicted, and there's a reason why some people are addicted and some people aren't. There's good reasons for all this stuff. Nothing happens in a vacuum. Nothing is unexplainable. Depends on just how long you want to sit and listen to the explanation, because you can't explain it in 10 minutes. You can summarize it maybe. But if you're addicted, it's probably because in your ancestral lines, there was a lot of famine. A lot of times when your ancestors had to rely on the survival fuel, and the ones with the traits that didn't allow the carbohydrates to produce satiety are the ones that eventually survived and led to you. So you can thank your ancestors because they lived in an area where there were frequent famines and very few carbohydrates for your predilation to eat them until you can't move. The person who has no carb addiction, or very little, probably comes from a line of people who lived in an area where there was plenty of food, not many famines, and their evolutionary line didn't have to develop along the path that the fittest were those animals that were not satisfied by carbohydrates. And it goes back that far, maybe tens of millions of years or more. That there's a reason, and it's all in the programming. So the programming basically urges the animal to eat sugar. It does that in humans by giving you pleasure when you do eat sugar, because you got to have a carrot and a stick. And the carrot is the pleasure, comfort food. Comfort food. The most dangerous two words you can put together in this world. Just think, when you think comfort food, just, that's because that food gives you comfort, and comfort is a natural, desirable state to be in. We're manipulated by our subconscious to anticipate that by neurotransmitters, by dopamine. So we don't get the same feelings from meat and fat as we do from treats and sugar. The satisfaction and satiety we get from those two different types of food are wildly different. Wildly different. There's a reason why all this is the way it is. What's really going on is, if you are a high-level sugar addict, your subconscious is monitoring the amount of glycogen that you have in your muscles and liver, and basically panics when it gets low, and you are now triggered and urged to gorge on carbohydrates, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's a long answer to a short question, but that's what's happening. And that happens in every human behavior. If you've ever heard, so-and-so's a behavioral psychologist, their whole life and career is the study of what we've learned about just exactly how our behavior is influenced by our entire ancestry going way back. It's fascinating stuff. I find it fascinating, and it all ties in again with a big picture of how things really work. And then somebody comes along and tells me, no, it doesn't work that way, and comes up with some superstitious fantasy story about how it really works, and they believe that too. So hence conflict. Okay, my friends, I'm really going long today. Any other questions? I can't believe, why is this not finding Q? There we go. Tristan says, hey Mitch, how are you today? What was the breaking point that caused you to switch to carnivore? That's a long question. There was no single breaking point. It's carb addiction drove me to it. I could not, no matter what I did, keto, anything else, I would always fall off the wagon. I tried carnivore. This is a good question. I tried carnivore just like I would try any other diet. But it was like the heavens parted and the rays of the sun shone through and the angels were singing. That's as close as I've ever come to a religious experience, by the way. And my addictions, after about 2 or 3 weeks of not eating any sugar, almost went away. And for somebody who's been a slave to this crap all his life, one thing you do notice real quick, you look at one day and say, what's different? I'm not standing in front of the cupboard all the time. I'm not running to the refrigerator every 10 minutes to get some snack. Yeah, an analogy that might be, you got tinnitus, your ears ring. One day you wake up and your ears aren't ringing. First time in years. How long is it going to take you to notice that? You say, something's different. Can't put my finger on it, but that's the way it is with addictions. All of a sudden, you realize you're not preoccupied with cramming sugar down your neck. It's an amazing thing. And once you discover that, and you can become convinced that that's what caused it, that not eating the sugar, well, that makes sense because that's how you cure an addiction. You have to abstain. Why haven't anybody told me that before about sugar? It's true for every other addiction. Why haven't people talked about that? Why haven't people said, well, duh. You never fix it until you abstain. It's tough to abstain. There's this pesky little thing called withdrawal. That can also be explained by the same subconscious mechanisms that make the addiction in the first place. As you start to withdraw, the hungrier you get, the more emotional clues and cravings are thrown at you, and it just intensifies until it makes you sick. But eventually, we're adaptable. Your animal brain will learn a lesson. Wow, it's been a week and I haven't died yet. Maybe I don't need to panic that much. Maybe I don't need to waste so much energy and of my time throwing these cravings at this guy. Turns out we can live very fine without them. Now, we'll never forget the pleasure that we used to get, but it'll fade away over time. That's why cheating, if you're a level 100 addict, cheating, you may as well just make a conscious effort to say, you're never going to get back to food freedom. You keep waking up this beast that finally fell asleep. I don't care what you want. You keep poking that beast. When he's sleeping, he's going to wake up. When he wakes up, the memories of the pleasure, and then you go to the birthday party, and there it is right in front of you, and you cannot stop yourself. Fact. No matter how much you delude yourself, no matter how much I've deluded myself. So I learned these lessons by observing my own behavior first and being honest with myself and not trying to find an excuse to blame it on somebody else. And that's how I know that carnivore is the only way if you're a flaming sugar addict. Now, I don't consider all carbohydrates addictive. Really, I don't know anybody who's addicted to broccoli. So you have to be reasonable about this. You can't lump all of them together. In fact, the addictive scale, which carbohydrates are more addictive, kind of coincides, coincidentally, with the glycemic scale. Well, will you imagine that? Who'd ever thought to say, or put 2 and 2 together and actually come up with 4? Isn't it amazing that the faster a sugar is metabolized or digested, and the more of a glucose spike you get from it, the more addictive that food will be. Wow, what a concept. And then a carbohydrate that doesn't spike your blood sugar at all, like broccoli or fiber, you probably wouldn't get addicted to it. Wow. What a revelation. What a revelation. God, Mitch, your knowledge of the obvious is exceeded only by your grasp of the self-evident. And yet, who's talking about it like that? Where else have you heard people compare the addictiveness of a carb with its glycemic score? And doesn't that make sense? That's what amazes me. That's what amazes me. There's no money in saying that, unfortunately. Oh, yeah. So anyway, question, could there be any evolutionary advantage to existence? Yes, I talked about that. Hey, Mitch, just wondering if any neighbors have asked you how you lost weight. No, I don't have neighbors that I talk to, and they don't care. And I tried with some of my neighbors over time, and none of them, they all think I'm crazy, and the hell with them. I'm a loner, and I don't, I honestly don't need, I don't need to become friends with morons. Crazy Horse question, Mitch. Do you think babies go through a transition from carnivore to the SAD when start eating food? I am wondering if that's why they have so much gas. Well, yeah, Crazy Horse, that's kind of obvious. Because let's go back 20,000 years, which is a pimple in time on the evolutionary scale. Babies were fed with breast milk, period, for years sometimes. Or they died. That was the only source of food for an infant. Not from an animal either. Mother's milk. Mother's milk is got all the good stuff in it. Plenty of cholesterol and fat. Babies are born in ketosis. They should remain in ketosis for months. Even though the infant mortality rate was through the roof, they still had a better chance of surviving and being healthy if they weren't killed by something like a bacteria, disease, eaten by an animal, or some other reason. Infection, injury. We had no medicine. But as far as metabolic health goes, they were doing exactly what they were supposed to. Kids can't do that anymore. Now, maybe Ken Berry's kids can because he knows better. So what happens is right away, we start feeding them poison instead of the food they're meant to. And how can you expect them to not develop all these conditions and mental illness and autism and become diabetic by the time they're 10, get fat. And then, on top of the bad diet, we've given them video games. We're killing the kids. Nothing that in their lives, from the instant that they leave the chute, is at all as was intended. Nothing. So you can't fix the babies. Unfortunately, until you start to go back to the way it was before we became so intelligent and invented baby formula and Gerber's creamed asparagus in a little jar. Listen, anyway, my friends, I got down to the bottom of the chat over here, and if I missed anybody, I'm sorry, but it's getting late. I will see you. I'm going to do it tomorrow evening, and I'm going to do it open to everybody, at least the first Tuesday night, and see what happens, and see if the members of my private community feel less special, in which case I'll make it private. But let's open it up to everybody to see if we can get some people, and see how Tuesday night at 7 conflicts with virtually everybody else that's doing a live stream, and see if I even have a chance. I know Thursday, and I know I got to go up against, with our private community, up against Curry. Somebody always doing a live stream anymore, and I can't complain about it because I'm one of them. So 6,000 channels, just like your cable TV. Let's see. Let's play a little happy music. Here we go. Patty's Garden. I am here, Mitch. I didn't want to interrupt. You're not interrupting. Lori, thank you, Mitch. CB Carmack, waving. How you doing, CB? Hanging with Jen, said bye all. DS111. Manny Scaving, spiked insulin equals addiction. Spiked dopamine equals addiction. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's what I've been saying. Glad somebody's listening. Lady June says goodbye all. Tammy, did I say hi to you? How you doing, Tammy? Thanks, Mitch, she said. And she's dancing away, too. That's great. All right, my friends. I'm not going to put out a video today. I'm going to take the rest of today off. And I will see you all tomorrow evening. Next time. Tomorrow evening. 7 p.m. for a wide open live stream. And we'll have some nice conversation. I hope that we talked about something that maybe was meaningful today. It was rambling for me, but I think I got a few good points out. And I hope you all had a good time talking to yourselves and solved all your problems. Barry, Simon, you too. Have a great day. Mitch and all lambs. See you all Wednesday. The night shows are a bit too late. Yeah, that's what happens. Everybody's a little different, but I think for people in this country, a couple of night shows will give a lot more people a chance to get involved and abuse me. And you know how much I love that. So, my friends, thanks for coming so much. Thanks for coming so much. I really appreciate you being here in the morning. And take the rest of the day off. I'm going to. And I'm certainly going to eat meat.